Hey everyone, I'm Will, and welcome back. On this channel, we deconstruct predictive programming, looking at how the stories we consume work on a subconscious level. We track how narratives can subtly adjust our feelings and beliefs, expanding the space of what we're willing to accept over time. If this video opens a new door for you, remember that sharing it can do the same for someone else. Today, we journey into the grim world of the first Hunger Games film, a story that presents itself as a tale of youthful rebellion, while functioning as a sophisticated training manual for a society built on ritualized violence, emotional submission, and the illusion of hope. It is a story designed to prepare us for a world where suffering is packaged as entertainment, where dissent is channeled into state-sanctioned spectacle, and where obedience is cultivated through the constant threat of loss. The film introduces us to Panem, a nation that maintains its fragile peace through a brutal annual pageant, its core tenets laid bare in the opening text of the Treaty of Treason. The narrative immediately previews the key themes we will deconstruct throughout this analysis, including the redefinition of heroism as a form of sacrifice, the cultivation of obedience through fear, and the programming of emotional detachment required to survive in a world that turns life and death into a game. And stick around until the end, because after we break down the film's programming, we'll also explore how a better, more positive version of this story could have unfolded. The film opens not in the districts but in a Capitol television studio, where head game maker Seneca Crane provides the official justification for the games, describing the tradition as something that grew out of a painful history and now knits us all together. This initial scene is a masterclass in framing, immediately establishing that the violence we are about to witness is sanitized and rationalized, programming the audience to accept the institutional justification behind the horror before ever meeting the victims. Before the games can begin, the film immerses us in the bleak, impoverished reality of District 12, establishing an atmosphere of engineered despair that serves as the foundation for the capital's control. This is a world of gray tones and hunger, where the population is worn down by generations of hardship, a visual language of oppression that explains why a large-scale rebellion seems impossible when a person struggling for their next meal has little energy left to fight for freedom. The narrative introduces this theme through the intimate lens of the Everdeen family, where Katniss comforts Prim after a nightmare about the reaping, her reassurances tinged with the desperation of knowing the odds are never truly in their favor. Her promise to protect Prim is immediately followed by her own need to break the law, sneaking under the district's fence to hunt for food. This sequence establishes a crucial piece of programming. In this world, survival and illegality are intertwined, ensuring citizens are always kept in a state of minor transgression and are thus easier to control. The conversations between Katniss and her friend Gale in the woods further articulate the psychological state of the oppressed. Gale represents the spark of rebellion, asking, "What if everyone just stopped watching?" and imagining a world where collective action could dismantle the games. Katniss, however, embodies the pragmatism born of trauma and responsibility, dismissing his ideas as fantasies and reminding him of the capital's overwhelming power. She is grounded by her love for Prim, a bond that also serves as her chain, tethering her to the district. This dialogue conditions the viewer to see pragmatic survival as a more mature choice than idealistic rebellion, guiding us to identify with Katniss's realism and to internalize the very hopelessness that the capital depends upon. The reaping ceremony is the central ritual of the capital's power, presented as a masterfully designed piece of psychological theater. The scene is one of chillingly calm, bureaucratic procedure, where children are dressed in their best clothes and made to sign in with a prick of their finger, their blood physically binding them to the lottery of death. Effie Trinket's arrival, with her garish outfit and grotesquely cheerful demeanor, highlights the profound disconnect between the capital and the districts. Her catchphrase, "Happy Hunger Games, and may the odds be ever in your favor," a hollow pleasantry mocking the grim reality. Before the selection, citizens are forced to watch a propaganda film that recasts their history of rebellion as treason against a benevolent state. The film defines the games as a pageant of honor and sacrifice, a necessary ritual to safeguard the future, demonstrating how language can be weaponized to invert reality and control a people by policing their understanding of history. The drawing of Primrose Everdene's name is the catalyst for the story, but Katniss's subsequent volunteering is the moment where the system's genius is truly revealed. Her desperate cry, "I volunteer as tribute," is an act of pure love. However, within the framework of the games, this heroic act is immediately co-opted and absorbed by the system. The officials treat it not as an act of rebellion, but as a dramatic turn of events, celebrating District 12's very first volunteer. Katniss's choice, born from love, is instantly reframed as a laudable act of civic participation that makes the show more interesting. This conditions the audience to see heroism not as an act that challenges the system, but as one that ultimately operates within its pre-approved boundaries. The crowd's silent three-finger salute is a flicker of genuine dissent, but it is quickly overshadowed as the formal procedure of the reaping continues. Once the tributes are chosen, they are delivered into the custody of the Capitol, where a new phase of programming begins, the systematic stripping of their identity and the remaking of themselves into marketable products. The journey on the high-speed train is the first step, a jarring transition from the muted gray of District 12 to a world of unimaginable luxury that serves to disorient both the tributes and the audience. The introduction of Hamish Abernathy, their drunken and cynical mentor, further reinforces their hopelessness. His initial advice, a brutal dose of realism. Embrace the probability of your imminent death. This communicates that even the past victors are broken cogs in the machine, their survival having cost them their humanity. Upon arrival in the capital, Katniss is handed over to her prep team, who treat her body like a canvas to be scoured and painted, representing the stripping away of her natural, district-born identity so she can be remade in the capital's image. Her stylist, Cinna, presents a gentler face of this process, but his goal is the same: to help her make an impression to acquire sponsors. He designs the Girl on Fire costume, a brilliant piece of branding that immediately makes Katniss a memorable spectacle. This entire process is a lesson in the commodification of the self. Katniss learns that in this world, survival depends not on who you are, but on the character you can perform for the audience. The programming teaches the viewer to accept the logic of personal branding as a necessary strategy for navigating a competitive world. Following their physical transformation, the tributes are subjected to a series of evaluations designed to manufacture public consent and assign value to their lives. The training scores are the first step, ranking the tributes and turning the children into assets with their potential for survival reduced to a single number for the betting public. Katniss's defiant act of shooting an arrow at the game maker's feast, while seemingly rebellious, ultimately plays into their hands, earning her a high score because they recognize her potential for creating a good show. As President Snow later warns, a spark is fine, as long as it's contained, and Katniss's high score is that spark, a tool the game makers can use to make the narrative more exciting. The interviews with Caesar Flickerman represent the pinnacle of this manipulation, as he expertly spins trauma into entertainment. Katniss, coached by Cinna, becomes the relatable, nervous girl trying to be brave for her sister. However, it is Peeta's interview that delivers the most potent piece of programming. His confession of a long-held, unrequited love for Katniss is a bombshell that electrifies the audience. Haymitch immediately recognizes the strategic value of this move, explaining, "He made you look desirable, which, in your case, can't hurt, sweetheart." He reveals the final step in their commodification. They are now to be sold as the star-crossed lovers from District 12. This narrative, however false, is what will attract sponsors. The programming here is deeply insidious, teaching that the performance of emotion is more valuable than authentic emotion. Love is no longer a private bond. It is a strategic tool to be leveraged for public sympathy. The audience is conditioned to invest in this manufactured romance, becoming active participants in the system that forces this performance. The commencement of the games marks a stark shift in the film's programming, moving from psychological manipulation to visceral physical conditioning. The arena is more than just a battlefield. It is a meticulously controlled environment designed to strip the tributes of their humanity. The initial bloodbath at the cornucopia is the first test, a trap designed by the game makers to generate immediate, high-impact violence. The game makers, led by Seneca Crane, function as digital gods, observing from a control room and intervening whenever the action lulls. They demonstrate that the chaos of the arena is an illusion, with every event managed. When Katniss gets too close to the edge, they create a computer-generated forest fire to turn her around, teaching the audience that even in what appears to be a state of chaos, there is always an unseen hand guiding the outcome. The introduction of the tracker jackers, genetically engineered wasps whose venom causes powerful hallucinations, represents a further escalation of this control. These creatures are an unnatural terror, a perversion of the natural world designed specifically for the games. When Katniss is stung, her resulting hallucinations blend her past trauma with her present fear, blurring the lines of reality. This sequence conditions the viewer to accept the idea of biowarfare and psychological manipulation as legitimate tools of the state. This process of dehumanization is essential for both the tributes and the audience. The tributes must shed their moral codes to survive, and the audience must become detached enough from the humanity of the players to continue watching, as their deaths are marked only by the impersonal boom of a cannon. In the midst of the arena's brutality, the narrative introduces a powerful anomaly: the alliance between Katniss and Rue. Their bond is genuine and born of mutual respect, a stark contrast to the manufactured romance with Peeta. Rue's death is the film's most emotionally devastating moment, and Katniss's reaction to it becomes a pivotal act of political defiance. Instead of simply moving on, she performs a ritual of her own, singing to Rue and then carefully decorating her body with flowers. This act is profoundly human and completely outside the script of the games, a refusal to allow Rue's death to be just another number. She reclaims Rue's humanity, then turns to a camera and gives the three-fingered salute of her district, a gesture of silent grief and solidarity. The system's reaction to this moment is immediate and twofold, revealing its sophisticated methods of control. First, we see the people of District 11 riot, an explosion of collective anger inspired by Katniss's gesture, demonstrating the danger of genuine compassion. Second, the game makers respond not with punishment, but with absorption. Claudius Templesmith announces a sudden rule change. 2 victors may be crowned if they originate from the same district. This is a brilliant maneuver that takes the politically dangerous energy created by Katniss's grief and redirects it back into the officially sanctioned narrative of the star-crossed lovers. The programming teaches a critical lesson. A truly powerful system does not just crush dissent. It absorbs it, rebrands it, and sells it back to the public as part of the show. Following the rule change, the narrative shifts its focus to Katniss's search for Peeta, a sequence that directly engages with the programming of the hero as a societal pacifier. Katniss finds Peeta severely wounded, and from this moment on, her mission becomes his survival. She becomes his protector, his nurse, and his sole source of hope. This dynamic, while emotionally compelling, serves a specific conditioning purpose by reinforcing the archetype of the singular, hyper-competent savior who must rescue the helpless. The film details her efforts to care for him, and when the game makers announce a feast to distribute needed medicine, Katniss resolves to go, despite the immense danger, her actions framed as a noble sacrifice that solidifies her role as the active hero. The audience is conditioned to invest all of their hope and anxiety in her. Our relief is tied directly to her success. Our fear is tied directly to her potential failure. This is the core of the pacification technique. By creating a problem like PETA's near-fatal injury that can only be solved by the extraordinary actions of one individual, the story trains the audience to outsource its own sense of agency. The solution must come from a heroic quest for a magical item provided by the sponsors. This reinforces the belief that when faced with overwhelming odds, the correct response is to wait for a hero to emerge. We become spectators to our own salvation, learning on a subconscious level that our role in a crisis is to watch and hope, diminishing the belief in collective action. The film's climax presents what appears to be the ultimate act of rebellion, only to reveal the final, most sophisticated layer of the system's control. After Cato is defeated, Katniss and Peeta are left as the last two survivors, at which moment Claudius Templesmith's voice revokes the previous rule change, declaring there can be only one victor. This is the Capitol's final, cruel twist, designed to force one lover to kill the other in a moment of supreme televised tragedy. Katniss, however, chooses to defy this script. Realizing that the Capitol needs a victor more than they need to enforce this rule, she produces the poisonous nightlock berries and proposes they die together, thereby denying the games their winner. This is a profound political statement, a refusal to play the game by the system's rules. Peeta agrees, and as they raise the berries to their lips, the system finally blinks. The frantic voice of Claudius Templesmith screams for them to stop, and they are declared the joint victors. On the surface, this appears to be a total victory for rebellion. However, the aftermath reveals the system's ability to absorb even the most radical acts of defiance. Haymitch warns Katniss that she showed the Capitol up and instructs her to perform the role of a lovesick girl who could not bear to live without Peeta. Her politically charged act of defiance must be reframed as an emotional, irrational act of passion. And in her final interview with Caesar, she plays the part perfectly. The system takes her rebellion, neutralizes its political message, and sells it back to the public as the triumphant conclusion of the star-crossed lover's story. President Snow's cold congratulations and his pointed glance at her Mockingjay pin signal that while she may have won this battle, the war for control of the narrative is far from over. As the credits roll on the Hunger Games, we are left with the lingering image of Katniss and Peeta, victors returning to a home that can never be the same. The film, in its entirety, has functioned as a powerful piece of programming, a carefully constructed narrative designed to acclimate the audience to a world of pervasive control, manufactured consent, and ritualized violence. It has taught us to accept a reality where authenticity is a liability and performance is a survival skill. It has shown us a hero who, despite her defiant spirit, ultimately succeeds by playing within the rules of the spectacle, her greatest rebellion absorbed and neutralized by the very system she sought to undermine. The story conditions us to see the world through a lens of pragmatic cynicism, where the best one can hope for is to survive, not to truly be free. A truly different film, a more dangerous and perhaps more honest one, could have explored an alternative path. It could have imagined a story that took Gale's initial questions seriously. Imagine a narrative that pivots away from the arena entirely, focusing instead on the districts as they begin to communicate, organize, and plan a collective act of defiance. A story where the climax is not a fight to the death, but a general strike of the viewership, a coordinated moment where every screen in Panem goes dark because the people have chosen en masse to stop watching. That film would have suggested that true power lies not in the hands of a singular hero, but in the collective will of the people. It would have championed solidarity over spectacle and quiet, organized resistance over televised violence. It would have offered its audience a genuine blueprint for dismantling a system, not just surviving within it, a future where our humanity is not a liability to be managed, but our greatest and only true strength. Exploring what makes a story truly powerful is a conversation worth having. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive. If this analysis offered you a new perspective, consider sharing it with someone else. And be sure to subscribe, because the rabbit hole goes deeper, and our next subject is one you will want to be here for.